The year is 1919. A man pushes a heavy wooden wheelbarrow through the cracked pavement of a Berlin street. It is piled high with stacks of paper currency, bound by twine and overflowing onto the cobblestones. He stops in front of a bakery. The shopkeeper stands behind the counter, staring at the mountain of paper with a look of practiced indifference. The man dumps the load onto the counter. It is not enough. He reaches into his pockets, pulls out a handful of loose notes, and adds them to the pile. Only then does the shopkeeper slide a single crusty loaf of bread across the wood. The man takes it, turns, and leaves the wheelbarrow behind. Outside, the air is thick with the scent of coal smoke and frustration. Groups of men gather on street corners, their voices rising in sharp, rhythmic chants. They point fingers at imagined enemies, whispering the stab-in-the-back theory like a prayer. They claim the nation was betrayed from within. The resentment is a physical weight, heavier than the worthless paper left in the bakery. It spreads through the city, turning the gray exhaustion into a sharp edge. The gray exhaustion of the streets vanishes, replaced by a harsh, aggressive red. Banners unfurl from the Reichstag, snapping in the wind like whip cracks. Rhetoric hardens into law. By 1935, the Nuremberg laws are read aloud in public squares, their words stripping away the rights of citizens with clinical precision. A shopkeeper stands inside his store, watching the street through the glass. A soldier approaches the storefront, a brush dripping with thick, yellow paint in his hand. The shopkeeper moves toward the door, his hand hovering over the latch, but he stops. He watches as the soldier presses the brush against the window, dragging it in sharp, calculated strokes to form a yellow star. The paint runs, streaking down the glass like a stain. The shopkeeper turns back to his counter, his hands trembling. He pulls out his passport. A heavy stamp hits the paper, leaving a bold J that mocks him as an outsider in his own home. The exclusion is no longer a rumor whispered in dark corners. It is written on every wall and stamped into every document. He looks at the star on the window, then back at the empty street. The silence inside the shop is absolute. The law has turned the neighbor into a target. The night of the 9th of November, 1938, begins with a single, sharp fracture. A rock hits a window. The glass gives way, cascading onto the sidewalk in a jagged, crystalline roar. Then, the sound multiplies. It echoes from every street, a rhythmic, violent percussion of breaking storefronts and splintering frames. The pretense of law has evaporated. State-sponsored violence has arrived. The shopkeeper watches from the shadows. By morning, the city is a landscape of debris and smoke. The map of Europe begins to darken, ink blot stains spreading across borders. In 1940, the focus shifts to the city of Warsaw. The sound of hammers replaces the sound of glass. Men work in shifts, dragging heavy stone and mortar to build high, thick walls. They seal off entire districts, cutting streets in half. Thousands are forced inside, their lives compressed into a few square blocks. The gates are locked from the outside. In 1942, the bureaucratic machinery of death finds its formal name at the Wannsee Conference. The final solution is codified, turning murder into a logistical operation. The walls of the ghetto are no longer the final destination. They are merely the holding pens. Trains arrive at the platforms of Auschwitz, Birkenau, and Treblinka, their iron wheels screeching against the tracks. The doors swing open, and the process of industrialized extermination begins. The scale of the horror defies human language. On the screen, a single white dot appears against a void of absolute black. It is a solitary life, extinguished. Then, the dot divides. It doubles, then quadruples, the pace accelerating until the screen is a frantic, flickering sea of white. 6 million dots fill the frame, a dense, suffocating mass representing the lives stolen. Each dot is a person who once breathed, worked, and loved. The screen pulses with the sheer volume of the dead. Other colors bleed into the frame, representing millions more. The dots do not stop moving. They overwhelm the space, turning the screen into a vast, silent monument. In 1945, the gates of the camps swing open. Allied soldiers step inside, their movements slow, their faces drained of color. They stand in the heavy silence, staring at the physical reality of the atrocities. The scene shifts to the courtroom in Nuremberg. Defendants sit in rigid rows, headphones pressed to their ears, forced to listen to the testimonies of their own crimes. In 1948, the world responds with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a formal promise to protect the dignity of every person. Today, memorials stand under clear, open skies in Berlin. They are stone and shadow, serving as a final, unyielding warning. We remember, so that the cycle of hatred never finds a path to return.